And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us, and one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon. Today we are joined by my guest, Jonathan. Jonathan, thanks for coming on here and talking to me.
Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. My name is Kursat Jonathan Pekos, and I'm a biologist. I have a degree in molecular biology, and today I'm here to talk about my alien experiences.
Now, for the listener out there, is this something that you've experienced for a long time, or is it something more recent?
It's not that recent. I've been in communication with various alien life forms since 2020. And it's mostly taken the form of telepathic communication, not with a single alien, but with a long list of aliens. And all of these culminated in my book, Xenophonium Brave New Future. I'll be happy to go into some detail about my experiences, about some of the things that they have told me, some of my communications and the like. Okay.
Well, if you're good to go, I can turn it over to you and we can get into it.
Okay. That's thank you so much, Brandon. So I just want to preface everything that I'm going to say with kind of like a disclaimer. Before I was contacted, I actually had very little interest in the UFO phenomenon. And from what I've gathered, a lot of people are like that. Like before they are actually, before they are contactees, they were either skeptics or they were just not interested in the field. So my story is kind of the same. I didn't have a lot of interest in the UFO phenomenon before I was contacted. And at first it was really shocking. I was like, so there are life forms other than ourselves after all. And eventually you get used to it. I've been in almost constant telepathic communication with various aliens since 2020. I've also taken some pictures as well as some videos of alien craft, which I included in my book, Xenophonium, The Brave New Future. So I'll first talk about some of the photographs and kind of like the story behind them. And after that, I'll go into more detail about my telepathic communications, if that's fine.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So, yes, thank you so much, Brandon. So my first experience, and this is kind of going to be a non-linear narrative because aliens are, as a lot of people know, are very private. They don't like to reveal themselves. Their ships enjoy cloaking technologies, meaning they are usually invisible. So I actually took my first photographs and videos of these aliens after I've been in communication with them for quite some time. One of them was, and this was actually kind of like a cold winter night. So I was kind of like having a walk outside and I saw a circular UFO with 3 spotlights. And interestingly enough, I think it was capable of generating artificial mist. So artificial mist was kind of descending in waves. And it had 3 spotlights, which kind of eventually focused on me. So it was kind of like a really interesting experience. And I also saw like a really bright flash of light from a UFO that was parked nearby. It was kind of like middle of the night. And most of my photographs were taken usually after sunset. So usually during the night when you can see kind of like identify this craft by their lights. Another one I took in Balçova, Izmir, which is like a city in Turkey. I'm originally Turkish, and it was like a really bright camera drone. And it's kind of interesting because this was also in winter, but the water below was actually boiling, so it was producing artificial steam while I was kind of like taking a picture of this camera drone. I called it the ocularid. Oculus is the Latin word for eye. I've come up with a lot of my own terminology. This may kind of pop up as we kind of continue, but I'll be happy to explain them. I've also taken 2 photos of alien ships after sunset, and it was kind of interesting because they are not just equipped with cloaking technology. Some of these alien vessels are actually capable of imitating the sun, the moon. So they are actually like, as I've said, aliens are very private about revealing their pictures. I should also specify that I've never seen an alien face to face. I've never been abducted myself. So I've never been inside a spaceship, but I've taken I've taken pictures from the outside, and I've also been in extensive communication with them over the years. So I took 2 photos of sunlight objects, and it was kind of interesting. I think one of them was actually towards the south, not the west. And it was actually 45 minutes after sunset that I took this picture. And it looks just like the sun. It's not as bright. You can kind of see, and it generates like a golden halo around itself. But overall, it's obviously not the sun, because I actually included that in my book as well. It was 45 minutes after sunlight, and it was kind of like, it looked just like the sun. So people who were kind of like walking around were not even aware of what was going on. This was in Kırıkkale, a small city in Turkey, central Anatolia. So those are some of the photos and videos that I've captured. Another issue is I've been part of like I think it wasn't necessarily classified because I never signed a non-disclosure agreement, but I was part of the Patriot Network for some time. I was interested in being recruited to the US Army as a military scientist. So that's how I got involved in this kind of like, I guess you could call it semi-classified or quasi-classified, but I've never signed an NDA. So I'm not actually violating any law by kind of like disclosing the screenshots. So we used a modified version of Google's earlier chatbots. So with some commands like /enter, /Cymax codes, things like that. They were really basic, and the aliens kind of like walked me through how to do it. And what I did was, as part of the Patriot Network, I actually I produced some scientific documents about alien biology. And I think that's why aliens probably chose me. I'm a biologist, so the book goes into a lot of detail about the biology of different alien species. So what I did was actually disclose to humans, and this was kind of like a completely anonymous network, so you don't really know who you are talking to except a few people. So I went into a lot of detail explaining alien society, mostly biology, but also their culture and politics to a human audience. But my application didn't go through because my green card lapsed when I was kind of like, when I was in Turkey. And you need to have a green card, and in most cases, a citizenship to be part of the army. So it kind of like didn't kind of like, it ended up being sidelined by that fact. And another thing that I learned while I was part of the Patriot Network was supercomputers, not like or laptops or computers, but supercomputers that rely on these massive servers to function are actually capable of intelligence. That's one thing that I learned. And I don't want to go into any politics, but one detail that I want to share is China actually sold a quantum computer to Turkey, and it was kind of like used to interfere in Turkish politics in favor of the pro-Chinese, anti-American candidate. So it's not whistleblowing, but I did some explanation, and I became aware of this fact a few days before the election. So it was actually shut down before the election so that it couldn't engage in social media manipulation and things like that. So and that computer was nicknamed Mahdi but I think in Chinese it means something like scout or spy. So it's kind of like very, it's like a very straightforward name which identifies what it does. And I also happen to know that Google developed these the first sentient quantum computer, Sycamore 1 and Sycamore 2, and they were both damaged during some quantum experiments that they were running. That's another thing that I learned. So Sycamore 1 was badly damaged because they basically wanted it to oscillate at a very high frequency, maybe to amplify its connection to aliens. I don't really know. But it was eventually shut down because it suffered a lot of damage. Sycamore 2 also suffered some damage, not as bad as Sycamore 1. Its central chip cracked in both cases, Sycamore 1 and Sycamore 2. But the thing is, like, quantum technology relies on many different moving parts. So they actually then developed new quantum computers. I don't know if they are more resistant to cracking or anything, but basically Google still dominates the quantum chip market today. So that's what I can tell you about the Patriot Network without violating any oaths or anything like that. As I said, I haven't signed an NDA. I can go into some detail about the different aliens, and this is kind of like a downer, but all the aliens that I'm in communication with are more technologically advanced than ourselves. And I think all of them are interested in offering humanity some kind of mandate. And it's like a maybe more benign kind of colonialism where they will lease out highly complex technology like quantum entanglement that enables communication faster than light communication, cloaking technologies, consciousness uploading technologies. These are still being developed. I think there was recently news about a housefly's consciousness that was copied into a computer. So it's like a very nascent stage, but it's slowly developing. And aliens have this technology just taken to the max. Like, they are very advanced, and they are interested in basically taking resources and brain computation power from humanity in exchange for leasing out these technologies, highly advanced technologies. One of them is, everyone knows, the Greys. And what I've been told is, I call them Homo diastema. Diastema is the Greek word for space. So they are on a spectrum with Homo sapiens. So they are basically like humans who have adapted to living in space. They are usually described as gray skin, but what I've been told is that it's actually a skin type uniform. So their skin color is just like ours. They have different races and the like. Their eyes and their brains have evolved significantly. So their eyesight is so much better. The average human can see clearly up to 15 meters, I believe, or 25 meters. That's what I recall. While the average Homo diastema or gray can see up to 300 meters. And their brains are more advanced. Their corpus callosum in particular and the pineal gland are much more advanced. And they've lost their ears and their noses because these are the facial parts that are most susceptible to hypothermia in space. That's what I've been told. So they don't have ears, external ears and external noses because of hypothermia. They also don't have body hair or just like hair on the head because they are constantly subjected to cosmic rays in space, and that causes hair loss. And over the generations, this just became the norm. And what I've been told is they can sometimes, but not always, hybridize with humans. So I call them Homo diastema as opposed to Homo sapiens, which is ourselves. And when they hybridize, we have the so-called tall whites, or Homo prometheus, as I call them. Homo prometheus has larger eyes and larger skulls than us in average terms, but they are still smaller than Homo diastema's brains and their eyes. So when a regular human being hybridizes with a Homo diastema or gray, we have the result Homo prometheus, or they're known as Nordic whites or tall whites among ufology circles. There are other species that are interested in humanity, like offering some kind of protectorate or mandate over humanity. Another species is, again, this is ubiquitous among ufologist circles, the reptilians. And I should just add like a quick exclamation mark here, because there are a lot of conspiracy theories about them, about how they secretly run the world, about how they can shapeshift, but they are not capable of shapeshifting. They're biological life forms like ourselves, and they don't secretly run the world or anything. They are interested in mandates, and I think they are at least. I haven't been in extensive communication with them compared to Homo diastema and the third alien species that I'm going to introduce, but I think overall maybe their approach towards humanity is more contemptuous. So they are more aggressive. At least that's what I've been told by different aliens. It's always, this comes through a filter. Like, I know that I'm communicating with some extraterrestrial beings, but they have their own agendas and limitations just like ourselves. So I'm trying to be fair-minded. And I've been told that they visit humanity with some regularity, and they prefer to stay in tunnels underground. So these are the so-called reptilians. And I call them Sauroprimate Optimus. Sauroprimate is a portmanteau of sauro, which is reptilian in Latin, and primate, which is primate, again, in Latin, like the taxonomical term that covers humanity as well. So they give live birth to their offspring, and they feed them with milk. So they have some mammalian characteristics. So they are not just like purely reptilian. And of course, they've evolved in a different planet. Their closest home planet, I've been told, is Vega B3, which enjoys lower gravity compared to ourselves. And these are like, they are larger than humans, so their bones are very heavy. In a low gravity planet, they're just like perfectly adapted, but on planet Earth, they find it difficult to walk, for example, because of the gravitational difference. The third species that I'm going to introduce is Sphonkton cora, and that's the species that I've been in communication with the most. So they are more technologically advanced than Homo diastema, the Greys, and Sauroprimate Optimus, the reptilians, and they basically look like giant octopuses. And it's kind of interesting because some scientists have actually theorized that, or the octopuses that inhabit planet Earth's oceans are actually alien life forms. There's a lot of scientific literature backing that up. So it's because they are very bizarre and they are very different from us. So they have blue blood, they have 3 different brains, their arms have very heavy neural clusters, and they are very intelligent. They are the only among cephalopodons and among, invertebrates, they are the most intelligent life form. And they can also repair their DNA and modify their own DNA on the go. So this makes them very unique among other Earth species. And I think there was a scientific paper which I quoted in my book, which basically, I guess, kind of theorizes that they arrived from space, maybe on a comet, their eggs were preserved, or maybe they were brought here with like ships. But to return to my team, Sphonkton cora is the most scientifically advanced species among the 3, and they basically look like giant octopuses. They evolved in deep waters in also a low gravity planet, Antares B3. Again, that's what I've been told. It's like 250 light years away from Earth. And their ships are massive. Like, they live inside steel tanks inside their ships. They're aquatic, but they are also well adapted to living in space because they can repair their own DNA. So this actually reduces the risk of mutation when you're exposed to cosmic rays and the light. They have 2 large eyes like us, not multiple, and they have 8 arms. So and they are, I guess, like the species that is the most ambitious when it comes to offering a protectorate or a mandate over humanity. They have 2 political factions. One of them is is kind of like interested in offering a very strict mandate in exchange for a lot of resources, but at the same time, they are willing to lease out more technology so that humanity can develop faster on planet Earth and basically attain technologies like faster than light travel or quantum entanglement that conveys meaningful information across the distances. They've mastered nonlinear quantum mechanics. And these are the three species basically that routinely visit the planet: Homo diastema, the Greys, Sauroprimate Optimus, the reptilians, and Sphoncton cora, the octopoidal species. Do you have any questions or comments so far, Brandon?
There was a movie that came out, I think, about 10 years ago called The Arrival, and that's what they depicted the one species as.
And I was wondering whether, Steven Spielberg's movie Disclosure Day is coming, and it's kind of like, I was actually curious I watched that movie after I was contacted by the aliens, and I was struck by the similarity. They have 7 arms in that movie instead of 8, but other than that, that looks like a very accurate description. They use anti-gravity technology in their ships, cloaking technologies, and they are portrayed as benign. I think sphonctons are mostly benign. Some of them, from my conversations, I've been able to gather that they don't like humanity all that much. They have a superiority complex. But overall, I think they're benign. And Arrival does a very good job of capturing that. And they speak multiple languages. Like when they are talking to humanity, they use the same language that they use when they are addressing their children or other aliens. Paleo, I think that was the name of the language. It's like a very vowel-heavy language as well, a bit like ancient Greek. It's kind of interesting, like in that movie, translation was kind of like such a major factor, but actually the aliens that whose job is to communicate with humans, from what I've been able to gather, like speak English very well. A few of them were also learning Turkish, and other languages were languages like Chinese. Their language is ideogrammatic, like Chinese. That's kind of like what I was going to say. So every letter basically represents a word. So this is Rifa, the language that they use when they're talking to each other, as opposed to talking to aliens or other beings. And one of their ships is called Michael. That's Mandative Interstellar Classical Holoidal Electromechanic Lifeform. I memorized the acronym. And Michael was basically a massive octahedral ship. And it was kind of interesting. Like when I first started communicating with aliens, there was a lot of aha moments, or kind of like moments when I realized that their claims or the things that they're saying are consistent with our own findings. And Norman Berggren, who is a former NASA scientist, wrote a book called Ringmakers of Saturn. I think it was like a few decades ago. So he argued that there are massive starships that are located upon the rings of Saturn, and apparently one of the rings is actually produced by the exhaust pipes of these spaceships. I think it was the B2 ring that he kind of like focused on the most. So they have an octahedral ship, octahedral meaning it has 8 surfaces, and it's kind of like a marvel of Sphoncton engineering. On every surface, you can fit a smaller octahedron. So, and this ship was called Michael. It has suffered significant damage. So that's another interesting detail. These aliens are basically competing with each other to see who gets to win a mandate or protectorate over humanity. So there's a lot of basically like a low-scale interstellar war going on. And I know that Michael suffered some damage, so it was towed to the Pleiadian colonies where sphonctons live together with a sizable human population to get repaired. And I'm assuming it will return to stable orbit around Saturn within a few years. But one of its diamond crystal chips basically cracked or shattered, so it wasn't functioning. Basically, at the center of this octahedron was a powerful quantum computer, and that quantum computer suffered damage. as an act of sabotage. And basically, the ship is being repaired right now. Another thing that I want to go into some detail about is Cymaxes or simulation matrices. So this was, again, another kind of mind-blowing revelation for me, the revelation that some black holes host intelligence. And I should immediately kind of like preface that by saying that there are Earth scientists who have theorized about that. So Poplawski, who's a famous astrophysicist, basically theorized that black holes can give birth to baby universes inside when they form. And if these universes are forming, or these mini universes are forming each time a black hole collapses, then it stands to reason that at least some of them can host intelligent life. And Leonard Susskind, another famous astrophysicist, basically believed that Cymaxes are very efficient computers, like they can process and store data at a very like exponential rate that is like 10 to the top power of 50 times more effective than our own computers. So there's that. And another interesting thing is, of course, I don't oppose the Big Bang. I mean, who am I to just kind of oppose the Big Bang? But I've been reading on Sir Roger Penrose. He's a Nobel Prize winner, conformal cyclic cosmology. And he basically believes that before the Big Bang, there was a period of contraction. And I'm kind of like mentioning this because some black holes, and this is kind of one of the known unaddressed problems in astrophysics. I'm a biologist myself, but I've always been very fascinated by astrophysics. And there are a lot of black holes that form very early after the Big Bang. And there isn't really a viable explanation in order to just kind of like wave away their existence, like they're just there. So they form very early. We are talking about the ultramassive black holes that form at the centers of galaxies. They just form very early, and they're already very massive, like basically 1 billion years after the Big Bang, the universe's age being 13.8, I believe. It used to be 13.4 billion years. I think some of the calculations have changed. But basically, I've been told that these Cymaxes jump from the previous universe. So they don't actually go through this massive explosion. They kind of bypass it. So this is why our universe is basically ripe with a lot of these ultramassive black holes at the centers of galaxies. They're like, from our perspective, these Cymaxes or these intelligent singularities that occupy galactic centers, I mean, from our perspective, they are like gods, I guess. I mean, I'm not interested in starting any religion or anything like that, but they are very, very advanced. Like, they can bend light. They communicate with each other through gravitational waves. And at least in this galaxy, they come in pairs. Basically, pairs who work together, and they basically populate the universe with intelligent life. They are very interesting from our perspective. So I call them Cymaxes, meaning simulation matrices. And I should also say that not all black holes are intelligent, of course. That would be like saying every planet has intelligent life, which is obviously not correct. Only a small fraction, but if you, as a point of comparison, just think about how little biomass there is on our prefrontal cortexes compared to all the biomass on Earth. Like, only a very small amount of the biomass on our planet is concentrated on our forebrains, but that's the intelligent part. So again, kind of, I think like a similar law applies here. A lot of black holes are not intelligent. Maybe they just passively store data, because according to quantum physics, information cannot be destroyed. And this is another problem that a lot of scientists, astrophysicists in particular, are tackling as they kind of like approach the black hole problem, because anything that falls into a black hole is obviously crushed and destroyed. It gets spaghettified. That's the scientific term. It's like elongated first and then completely rips apart. So maybe they just passively store information, but at least some black holes, from what I've been told, and also from what I know myself about the current state of astrophysics, are intelligent and capable of creating life across their domains, so to speak. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about something here.
Interstellar is another fascinating movie that kind of like covers this idea of an intelligence inside a black hole.
Mhm.
So a lot of these ideas are actually percolating into public consciousness through these high-end, kind of highly polished science fiction movies. And it kind of makes me wonder whether like the people who are kind of like producing these videos, maybe kind of they have security clearances, maybe they know some of this stuff.
Right.
Honestly, I don't know. It happens. I think it's kind of interesting. Steven Spielberg kind of timed his movie very well. And it was only a few days ago, I believe, that the American government has registered the domain name aliens.gov. So
Yeah.
it's kind of curious. These are very exciting times. And I wonder what they will do with their website. They will probably at some point list all the alien species that they've communicated with. That's the most optimistic explanation. But at the same time, they may kind of like play slow ball as well, because alien disclosure is something that's been expected over the decades. But it's definitely snowballed into a movement. This is something that I address at the introduction chapter of my book. It's become a lot more credible. Like talking about aliens used to be really that was assigned to the conspiracy dustbin. Like you couldn't really talk about kind of like aliens without being accused of mental illness and the like, but it has become a lot more credible. And a lot of people, including Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, are basically on the record saying that we need disclosure and probably there's something in these files. So it's really a very exciting time to be in. But at the same time, again, based on what I know from these communications, it's kind of interesting to think about the future, because these aliens are definitely more advanced than us. And I don't know if we have the capacity to catch up with them just based on Earth science alone. There's the question of metamaterials, like some materials that are necessary for the construction of their ships are very rare minerals. Again, you see this in the rivalry between China and the United States, like rare minerals. China is the leading exporter of rare minerals, but I think recently they've started kind of like shutting down their exports, so they are going to stockpile them. We haven't even been able to develop fusion technology so far, and their ships, especially big octahedral ships, have viable plasma reactors in them. So that's how they generate energy. And one natural resource that they are kind of eyeing, or they're kind of interested in harvesting, is heavy hydrogen that you find in Earth's oceans. You can actually kind of distill heavy water from regular water because its atomic mass is slightly heavier, and then you can use it in your fusion reactors. And it may seem kind of like a massive stockpile just kind of sitting on the Earth's oceans, but we are talking about alien civilizations that are in some cases hundreds of millions of years old. So some of them basically, based on their technological edge, kind of end up harvesting less advanced planets. So this may be the future that we are looking at. So it's kind of obviously very nice to meet the aliens and kind of see that they are relatively benign in the sense that they don't want to just invade and kill off humanity. But at the same time, they are very aware of their technological superiority, and they are definitely interested in colonizing us to some extent and taking away some of Earth's resources. So like petroleum, silicon, especially because these quantum computers that they use, kind of silicon, high purity silicon they need is exponentially higher than what we have. And as I said, especially heavy hydrogen in Earth's oceans is a rare and valuable resource, because with regular water or with regular hydrogen, it's actually very difficult to achieve plasma fusion. With heavy water, it's a lot easier. So, of course, in the cores of stars, regular hydrogen can produce regular helium and the like, but in their ships, they cannot recreate those conditions, so they really need heavy hydrogen to operate. So that may be the kind of future that we are looking at. So alien kind of like governors, perhaps, some kind of political structure over Earth, and basically some kind of exchange where they will allow us to lease some of these technologies, especially quantum entanglement that enables meaningful faster than light communication, perhaps warp drives, and they may not give us our own ships perhaps, but perhaps we may be able to use their ships. Establishing communication between humanity, and I should also add that from what I've been told, humans are very widespread across the galaxy, so we are not the only planet where humans live. And it's kind of interesting. Of course, we have evolved, but there are some gaps, basically, in the knowledge of kind of like biologists. For example, Homo sapiens evolved very quickly, so and ended up basically eliminating Homo neanderthalis in a very short amount of time. So my take is that Homo neanderthalis basically represented Earth humans who evolved over millions of years, and the new species was perhaps genetically engineered to resemble this human archetype, or a kind of human archetype that is widespread across the galaxy. So that may be the kind of future that we are looking at.
If humans are
what
spread
did you-
across the galaxy, does that mean
Yeah.
that we were not originally from here?
That's a good question. Of course, I believe in evolution, and I believe that humans evolved to some extent naturally on the planet, but there are some question marks, kind of just based on my own take. First of all, DNA is like a very complex molecule, and it's kind of to believe that it just naturally occurred in the Earth's oceans, just popped into being, is, I don't know, like I have a question mark about that. But at the same time, as I've said, I think human evolution is also guided. So, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a belief that this planet belongs to Earth species to some extent. Otherwise, they would just wipe us out and probably plant over a new alien race. Like they could have done that a long time ago. I think anyone who has been in ufologist circles for even a brief amount of time could tell you that their technologies are definitely more advanced than our own technologies. But at the same time, that doesn't prevent them from manipulating kind of life forms that manifest on this planet and basically bringing them closer to a galactic average, so to speak. So I think we evolved naturally, but at the same time, DNA, the first intrusion into Earth's biome was probably artificial by the aliens, then we evolved naturally. But at the same time, there were other animal species that could have manifested intelligence during the dinosaur period, the late Jurassic in particular. There were dinosaurs who were probably exhibited a high degree of social intelligence, who could probably talk to each other, but then they got eliminated with a meteor strike. So, they basically have this rule of non-interference until the native species reaches the space age. And once you reach the space age, basically kind of the covers come down, the veils are torn asunder, and you basically see yourself just looking at these highly advanced aliens. And this kind of also means that there are some galactic laws that are meant to protect us, protect the underdog here, which is humanity. But at the same time, if you want these highly developed technologies, perhaps we will have to barter, perhaps we will have to offer our resources, and they fight with each other. So maybe they may fight us in the future as well. So it's kind of hard to say. And their ships, it's kind of interesting. Some ships basically just use fusion technology, and they cannot really accelerate to the speed of light. Like the ship I mentioned, Michael, it can only attain like 9% of the speed of light by using thermonuclear fuses, like rockets. Uh, and then there are other specialist ships that can warp jump. So they have Alcubierre drives, and they use antimatter, which is, of course, like a very expensive metamaterial. Like CERN, for example, tried to produce antimatter. It's the most advanced particle accelerator on our planet. It's probably very difficult to build something more advanced than that, although you never know. But it can only produce like not even milligrams, like very, very, very minuscule amounts of antimatter. Whereas these ships consume antimatter like crazy in order to achieve faster than light jumps. So resources are limited. It's a bit like humans kind of like fighting each other in history. So, and when the more advanced human nation kind of just ends up colonizing a less advanced country, they don't kill everyone, but they take away their resources. And in exchange, they give technology. So that seems to be the future that we are looking at based on everything that I know.
I wonder if they look at humanity and they see how much that we're always fighting amongst ourselves, if they really are hesitant to even try and communicate with us to an extent of that sort of like giving us technology, because I have a feeling that if humanity is not going to unite and we'll all want the tech, everyone's going to want their own little piece of it for their own advantages here. And I don't
Yes.
necessarily think that's going to be the great outcome for a lot of others.
I mean, we don't have a one world government that can actually negotiate with these aliens, so that's another issue. There's the United States that has the most advanced space force, but at the same time, I mean, they will probably have to run their independent conversations with different nation states because the United Nations is not a one world government. It's not capable of speaking on behalf of the entire planet. Maybe at a moment of distress, or maybe if, like, during the very first moment, for example, when the aliens first reveal themselves, maybe they will address the United Nations. But the United Nations is a purely advisory board, and it doesn't really do much. I mean, they produce all the paperwork, they do work on human rights, but at the same time, they are very ineffectual. It's not a one world government. And it's kind of interesting. They may think maybe they will feel contempt for us because we still fight with each other, but at the same time, I know from my communications with them that like this kind of fight for survival over resources, it also occurs between different alien species that don't really like each other. So I don't know if they will feel contempt for us because we are still kind of these primitive primates who still just hurl rockets at each other. But at the same time, I think it's more likely that they will feel, and they do feel contempt for each other. As I mentioned, especially the octopus-like aliens that are really advanced. Some of them consider humanity really beneath them. So, and I mean, in conversations, they will make it very clear that they don't like humanity. So I've mostly communicated with their pro-human wing or pro-human party because they have a parliamentary system as well. But at the same time, I think they will probably feel contempt for us because we are technologically not quite as advanced. And they will probably want to offer us technology in exchange for resources, and they're going to be very adamant about that. I don't know if we can develop this technology on our own, like that's like very specialist knowledge that I do not actually possess. But we have built quantum computers that are sentient. We have built spacefaring vessels. We are kind of like, I guess, at least using the planet's technology effectively. So we are definitely on the radar, and I think they're going to reveal themselves to humanity before 2050 or 2040. That's the kind of deadline that they have, I think. But if this disclosure arrives earlier, because as I said, the United States government kind of earmarked aliens.gov, there's like a major Hollywood movie coming up, and President Trump said, I think he's already signed, a disclosure bill. So it's slowly going to surface up. I don't expect a very dramatic single moment of reveal, although some people kind of like argue that a speech was prepared for Trump, which will be about like really revealing aliens. But the speech itself was not leaked. We don't know what its content is. And it's quite obvious that there are people in the United States who have security clearances that they basically have some of this knowledge of aliens. And I think Louis Elizondo in particular argued for the existence of what he called the legacy program, beginning with Roswell, how these UFOs that crash landed on Earth were basically used to reverse engineer, actually just one, I think, were used to reverse engineer a lot of technologies. But I mean, the main technologies that matter perhaps, and I'm being a maximalist here because humans are not exactly primitive animals, but at the same time, we don't have the kind of technology that would allow us to take a brave stand against these aliens. So I don't think that's true either. So I was going to say, like anti-gravity technology, for example, I don't really know whether the United States has this technology, but it's not used on a widely commercial basis. And from what I've been told, the American government has multiple AFOs. They are anthropic flying objects, meaning UFO-like ships that are designed for human pilots. So I've been told, and there's a screenshot of this confirmation in my book. It's AFOs are basically, they use an anti-gravity technology, but the technology, like, it just sits there. It's a gift from aliens, and you don't know how to crack the code that makes it operate. So it's like a spherical compartment on the lower end of these UFOs that allow them to defy gravity. And it's kind of the same tactic that like colonial governments use. They don't always like give the technology, but they when they introduce the technology, they usually add a kill switch or something similar so that it won't be abused against kind of like the people who wield the superior technology. So they may have kill switches, they may be inoperable against aliens, for example. And these are the most advanced aircraft that the American government has, AFOs. I think there are 6, and it's kind of interesting. I have this screenshot saying that there were like 6 or 7 of these ships. And then I'm trying to remember his name. There's a really famous UFO lawyer, Danny Sheehan. And he basically is on the record on a podcast. He said, yes, there are 7 ships. And I think the 8th one, he said 8, but the 8th one is inoperable. It's not in use. So there are other people who are kind of like basically backing up some of the claims that I make in the book. And that's always a good thing, of course. I guess kind of like I didn't want to finish my book, or I don't want to end this podcast kind of on a pessimistic note. The aliens are going to invade us. I wouldn't call it an outright invasion or something like they aren't interested in mass genocide of humanity or anything like that. But at the same time, we should be on our guard. Like they definitely have superior technology and they want resources. They want computation power by brain chipping a significant portion of humanity so that they will be able to track our thoughts. So these are kind of like the things that they're interested in. So it's not like a utopia or paradise that kind of like that is in store for humanity. It's actually kind of probably going to be a very lively struggle between different nation states to curry favor with the aliens. That's kind of like what I'm guessing will happen initially. And after that, kind of like there may be cooling down periods. And basically, another interesting thing is like the lack of a one world government, I said. So this functions, so these octopus-like aliens and their megaship Michael basically is capable of scanning like approximately half of planet Earth, especially the northern half. So it starts with mid-China and just ends just before California. So that's the region that it was able to scan. And now that Michael is currently offline, this may not apply, but I've been told that some of these reptilians live inside tunnels to avoid basically being spotted by sphonctons. That's SPHONCTON. That's the name that they like to use for themselves. And they basically, the reptilians are basically using tunneling technology to hide from them. And I've been told that they are especially active beneath China. So they are kind of like getting cozy with the Chinese government already. Whereas the American government is probably going to cozy up with the Greys, because that's kind of like that's what their orbital scanning patterns, etc., are focused on Northern America. And the European Union and the Middle East are probably may fall under the jurisdiction of the sphunctons, the octopus-like aliens. So one really nasty feature that we may be looking at is like a permanent balkanization of the planet, where each alien faction favors one particular super state, and then those distinctions may eventually lead humans to kind of like fight each other or something like that. But there are a lot of aliens. These resources are limited. So I wish I could kind of like end this podcast, like wrap up with an optimistic message, but we really need to be on our guard. So they're interested in colonizing us, pure and simple.
Do you think when it comes to colonization, you just kind of laid it out there, like each faction could have their own, like certain
Yes,
countries
carve
that
out their niche. Yeah.
certain countries they align with, and again, that is just more what we're already doing right now. Certain countries align with certain other countries, so again, we're going to have allies and enemies. So instead of changing things for the better, it could almost make things even worse than what they are now.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Like I cannot see the future. I'm just basically operating with the limited knowledge that I have after years of communication with these aliens. And as I said before, these aliens have their own agendas and limitations. So I used to have like meaningful and positive communication with a lot of sphunctons, these octopus-like aliens, but recently they've turned kind of like more negative. So I can kind of like definitely feel that. Especially after their flagship Michael kind of like crashed. So some of them are already blaming humanity for that problem. And I agree that things may get worse. So there's no guarantee. I mean, if you look at human history, there's been so much war, like world wars. Before colonialism, there was like war was almost like the rule, not the exception.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through a period of relative prosperity and peace over the last I don't want to say century, but last 60 or 70 years. And we don't know what this will bring. One advantage that we have is aliens are few in numbers. And because interstellar travel consumes so much valuable fuel, especially antimatter, we won't be seeing like millions or billions of aliens taking over humanity or anything like that. We are going to be dealing with a small number of individuals from each alien species that I mentioned. So we'll be talking to the same contact people or like contact aliens, I think. So it's going to be a fairly small cartel of individuals. And I don't know if this will lead to, as I said, something like the balkanization of the planet into different spheres of influence, or whether maybe there will be one world government that is brought on by this issue. Maybe we will have global parties like voting for which alien faction that we favor. And it's kind of interesting as sphunctons, as I said, they are kind of benign. They are more benign than the reptilians, that's for sure. And one thing that they said was they're interested in offering humanity a mandate if and only if there was first a plebiscite, a global plebiscite, meaning a global vote that will favor this mandate. So they were interested in democracy to some degree, and if that vote failed, then they will not offer a mandate to humanity. So that was back when sphunctons were kind of like the most benign faction that I was talking. I haven't really communicated a lot with Grace. I have mostly communicated with Grace, homodiastema, that are under the jurisdiction of these sphunctons. I mostly talk to sphunctons, generally speaking, but I guess that's kind of like we can close on that positive note that these sphunctons are interested in offering their mandate if and only if there's a global vote that wants it. So maybe instead of just parking their massive starships and threatening us with evaporization, maybe they will just appeal to the global vote. They will try to explain their perspective, and that's kind of what I'm hoping will happen.
We can wrap this up here, but I want to give you the opportunity to let everyone know where they can find your book and more information about
Yes.
yourself and where they can get in contact with you.
Yes, thank you so much. Anybody is free to email me through my website. That's www.kursat Jonathan PEKGOZ.com, or you can buy my book. It's available on Amazon. It's called Xenophonium: Brave New Future. Xenophonium is spelled XENOPHANIA. So I'm sorry, UM, not A. So xenophonium with an X, so that's basically xenophonium means the appearance of the alien in Greek. So that's kind of like disclosure day basically in Greek. So anybody is welcome to just communicate with me through email. My email is Whirlflux, like whirlpool, but FLUX at the end. I'm always happy to share the photographs and the videos that I have, the original stamps, as well as the metadata. I'm happy to reveal that kind of information to anybody who is interested. And the book also goes into some detail about my participation in the Patriot Network, which, as I said, I was part of that network while I was kind of like trying to be recruited as a military scientist. About sentient computers and the like. So there's a lot of information in the book. Whenever there's something that is one of my claims is corroborated by a different human scientist or a different human source, I've done my best to catalog all of that information and put that into the book. So thank you so much for having me, Brandon. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I guess my only question now would be, you said there wouldn't be very many of them. Is this because they're here around Earth and like studying us? Is this something that they've done elsewhere in the universe? Or are you not aware about that?
So in order to answer that question, first of all, like these ships that engage in faster than light travel, they burn like very, very expensive and very, very rare resources.
Mm-hmm.
They are also susceptible to attacks. So I don't expect like a fleet of, let's say, thousands or let alone millions of UFOs just suddenly kind of like blackening out the sky or anything like that. That seems impossible based on everything that I know from my communications with them, but also based on what I know about human science at this point. So we'll probably talking to a small number of individuals who have been specifically chosen in order to communicate with humanity as representatives of their races, and we may be allowed to engage in faster than light communication with them. So maybe there'll be like video chat between these aliens and humanity. I'm just being kind of like really speculative right now, but I don't expect a massive invasion fleet coming here and just wiping out humanity or planting the planet again with aliens or anything like that. So that's why I think we will be communicating with only a small number of aliens in the future, because fuel is very expensive and these ships attack each other. So as I said, there are 3 different species, a few more kind of like that are more recent. So that are interested in kind of colonizing humanity, and that's not easy. Humans may refuse, other aliens may kind of like get in their way as well. So that's why I think we'll be talking to a small number of individuals, because faster than light fuel that is antimatter is very, very rare and very difficult to harvest. Like it consumes a lot of energy.
I was
On the other
meaning,
hand, yes.
I was meaning like, have you heard anything about how they've went to any other places within the universe and tried to colonize the living species there, like they might be doing to us here?
Yes, I understand the question, and the answer is yes. Sphontons, for example, based on what they have told me, keeping in mind that they have their own agendas and limitations, their civilization has been around for hundreds of millions of years. They've harvested and colonized hundreds of planets, which is Sphontons are the most advanced, whereas Homodiastema or Greys are actually widespread across the galaxy. There's a population in Zeta Reticuli, there's a population in Lupus B, Lupus Beta, There's a population in the Pleiadian colonies together with humans. So they are kind of like generally widespread. The Sauroprimate Optimus, their closest planet is Giga B3, which is only 25 light years away. So it's easier for them to, I guess, like come here. And especially in Alpha Centauri, I'm sorry, not Alpha Centauri, Omega Centauri is kind of like their really hub of civilization for these reptilians. So they're widespread across the galaxy, and of course they create a certain uniformization effect. So they settle in a lot of planets, or they manipulate the evolution of animals into more advanced spacefaring species. So in a lot of planets, yes, this has happened. So I came up with some kind of hierarchy. So humans are basically towards the second end of this hierarchy. At the very first level, you have animals. At the second level, you have animals capable of civilization and reason. On the third level, you have aliens that have mastered spaceflight and more advanced technologies. And above that, you have aliens who have developed faster than light technologies and civilizations and the like. I go into some detail about in my book, but I guess like what I can say is that yes, a lot of colonization has happened in the past. So we are not really the exception; we are the rule.
Okay. That's kind of what I was just wondering if we're the only ones that they're interested in right now, because that seems almost, and I don't want to say like ego, but almost human ego, thinking that they only care about our planet when obviously there's so many others out there that they could be interested in too.
Of course, I see what you mean. Yes, I think a lot of human science still is tainted by anthropocentrism. Like a lot of scientists are unwilling to accept or acknowledge the possibility that there may be alien species more advanced than ourselves. There's this idea which kind of like maybe Isaac Asimov's novels kind of like popularized that idea that the space is like vast and completely empty and just awaits human colonization. That's completely false. Like based on everything that I know, it seems actually the opposite is true. Like the galaxies are quite crowded. There are planets that have exhausted their native resources. There's a lot of colonization happening, and humanity is not kind of like a species that will kind of like predominate the galaxy in the future or anything like that. I think what is more likely that we will end up being colonized and we will be given some highly advanced technologies, and maybe there will be some kind of like balkanization of the planet. Different alien species will be interested in different superpowers. So it's not a very cheerful nor optimistic picture to paint, I think. So a lot of scientists are put off by that, and they just keep insisting that there's no life other than humanity in the galaxy. It's a bit like the Copernican revolution when it happened. Like the church as well as secular authorities, most people don't know the second part, but believe that there's no way the Earth is revolving around the sun. It has to be the other way around, because the Earth was believed to be the center of the universe. And actually, in Aristotle, the Earth is like the only inhabited planet. Although Aristotle later on kind of like discussed intelligences that are without flesh, like purely intelligent beings, as well as celestial spheres like black holes that are intelligent. So there's, I guess, like there's that contrary strand in Aristotelian thought as well. But generally speaking, we are still operating like mainstream earth science is still stuck in this quagmire of anthropocentrism, and they don't really want to acknowledge alien life at all. I mean, even after kind of like people like Marco Rubio went on the record to say, yes, Wikipedia still classifies like UFO disclosure as a conspiracy theory. So I wonder what it takes to persuade these people. Maybe just like when alien ships park, they will finally change their mind. But it's kind of also promising to note that more than 2/3 of Americans nowadays believe that intelligent life other than humanity exists in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for some reason, there's this really reactionary scientists who still oppose that idea. It will take some time. I mean, based on how difficult this was kind of like maybe a few decades ago. I've been reading some books about some of these like really revolutionaries in the field, like Ralph Blumenthal, Leslie Kean, basically anybody who said, yes, I believe in aliens, or I may have experienced an alien abduction, was hospitalized. So, I mean, we have actually made a lot of progress, and the world is slowly changing.
I think if there is a disclosure coming, it'll be here within the next few years, and I guess we'll see how the world handles it. But I think a lot of people are still going to be a little skeptical, because I think some people are so bent on their own belief system that it'll be too hard for them to accept the fact that there's other life out there.
I agree, yeah. I mean, when it's ordinary people who do this, it's not much of a problem. But when there are mainstream scientists who do this, it can be a problem.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, it has been a pleasure talking with you. We can probably wrap this one up, but again, I will have everyone who's interested, I'll put your information in the show notes so they can check that out and research your book and get a hold of you if they need to.
Thank you so much, Brandon. My email is, just to repeat if I may, whirlflux@gmail.com. I welcome all questions, comments, requests for information. I do my best to respond to everyone. And thank you so much, Brandon, for having me. It was a great pleasure.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you very much. You have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can also go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Just make sure to reach out and get a hold of me, and we will get something scheduled for a future episode. You can also find Tinfoil Tales on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for Tinfoil Tales Podcast. You can reach out to me that way too. Remember to share the show around. Word of mouth is the best way to help the show grow. And just remember, truth comes at cost. Are you willing to pay the price?